accidents on major highways in the metro area. The number of cars on Oklahoma highways started increasing about 3 o'clock today, just as soon as most of us could get off work. People going away from or coming to the city to spend Thanksgiving with family and friends. As the number of vehicles increases, the danger does also.
The main danger that we run into is the driver that starts out trying to go too far for the weekend, for the holiday, trying to cover too much distance. The driver, of course, that's intoxicated, and the driver that is speeding. What we find with the driver that is trying to go too far, he ends up going to sleep, running off the road. Run-off-the-road type single-car accidents is one of our big killers right at this time.
It's not only the roadways that are crowded. Airlines with their special holiday rates are having their normal increase. Travelers are buying plane tickets so they can get to their destination quickly. They can't afford the time it takes to travel by car or bus. But that doesn't knock bus lines out of the competition. The number of buses normally on each route have been doubled, and they're loaded to capacity. Travel supervisors all agree. Take your time slow and easy, and we'll all have a safe, happy holiday. Sherry Sellers, Action 4. Every Thanksgiving, Americans pile into grocery stores to walk out with piles of groceries. These are the dedicated traditionalists, those who are going to face the hot oven, dirty pans, and hungry relatives to prepare the traditional Thanksgiving feast. But there's now another way to celebrate, dining out. It involves no cooking or messy cleanup on your part. You need only enjoy the quiet atmosphere and good food. Where there's food, there's dirty pans, and unfortunately, someone has to clean them. It's all a part of Thanksgiving. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
We'll size it for you, and also you get a diamond certificate which states the quality. We're doing it.
Oklahoma City was on the checklist for Santa tonight as he makes his way from the North Pole. Dressed in fur from his head to his toe, and with his nose as red as a cherry, Santa personally started the Christmas season with a jolly...
Merry Christmas, everybody! Say it to me, Merry Christmas!
Santa, of course, captured the hearts and the fantasies of the little ones, but to the delight of all,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
the magic lights of Christmas turned on the spirit of peace and goodwill toward men tonight. But the symbol of the evergreen was only a small part of the total creation in tonight's happening.
Sing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. All the fields we go, laughing all the way. The rock fields green, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle bells.
But as Santa Claus left tonight, he made sure he left a bit of Christmas with everyone. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
Shoplifters come in all shapes and sizes. Their financial standing ranges from low-income to high-income levels. Department stores across the country go to great lengths to prevent shoplifting. This hanging mirror is one of many techniques used. Authorities say that $11 billion of merchandise is taken from stores each year, and 70 to 80% of all shoplifting is done between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Most department stores beef up their security during this time.
Statistics will tell you, I guess, about 1 out of every 5 is a potential shoplifter. So we do everything we can to deter these folks.
One of the more popular methods of preventing shoplifting is the one-way mirror.
In a lot of department stores, security people get into some awkward positions trying to catch shoplifters. A person could stand here for hours looking through this see-through mirror trying to catch thieves in action. I don't see a thief, but would you look at those legs?
Another method is the electric eye. Every time a customer walks into a dressing room, a beep is heard, making employees aware that someone is trying on new merchandise. And did you know that some of these light fixtures conceal small TV cameras, keeping an eye on potential shoplifters? And if this isn't enough, undercover personnel are close by. So if that nice-looking coat or expensive item is tempting you, you'd be better off just walking away from it. Chances are you're going to get caught, because the eye, or eyes, are more than likely on you. Ben McCain, Action 4.
Banks can be intimidating places, but they seem to be a necessary part of life. It's a straightforward procedure. Walk in, take a place in line, then tell the teller what you want. But what if you couldn't see the teller? How could you fill out their forms? Or what if you could see her, but couldn't hear a word she said? Hundreds of...
I chose this particular school because
Mary Quinlan is a young lady who's interested in world problems. Next week, she heads to Costa Rica to study agriculture and how it applies to small farmers in the Third World. Her studies will be sponsored by the Rotary International Foundation, and she'll try to find ways to help undeveloped countries be more independent when it comes to food.
It seems naive of the foreign policy in our country, of the president, to use food as a weapon, however, because it's kind of getting down to where you're making enemies on the most basic, deep levels. And once you make enemies on something like that, like once people go hungry, they're going to remember the United States as the place that could have supplied them with food and didn't. And I don't see how you can ever change, I don't see how you can ever change those attitudes.
Quinlan knows she can't solve the problems alone, but she's going to help in whatever small way she can. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.
Banks can be intimidating places, but they seem to be a necessary part of life. It's a straightforward procedure. Walk in, take a place in line, then tell the teller what you want. What if you couldn't see the teller? How could you fill out their forms? Or what if you could see her, but couldn't hear a word she said? Hundreds of people in Oklahoma City are either blind, deaf, or have sight or hearing impairments, and a simple trip to the bank for them isn't simple. That's why one bank is going out of their way to make it easier. For the blind, they have checks with raised lines, so the writer can feel his way along. They also have checks that can be written in Braille, along with monthly statements also in Braille. Or if the customer can't read Braille, their statements can be dictated on audio cassettes. For the deaf, there's the telecommunication device for the deaf. The customer calls a special number and takes care of business through a phoned-in readout. The bank doing this is Liberty National.
They weren't financially independent, or they might have been financially independent, but this makes it easier for them to do that. And it just helps them, or a deaf person, for that matter. They don't have to have anybody call for them. If they've got the TDY, they could just call themselves, ask their own questions, get their own personal answer. No one else has to know but them.
Liberty will even go to the home of the physically handicapped to open an account for them. And there's no extra charge for any of the special services. Ted Brown, Action 4 downtown.
Stanley Burris of Yukon started farming in 1952. He says he farms because he likes it and because it's become a way of life. According to the Canadian County farmer, there are no secrets to a successful farm, just a dedication to it.
I think my success in farming has been the same as many of the farmers in this area, in that a farmer never looks at the clock. We have worked, up to 24 hours a day when necessary, straight through, to harvest our crops, and then we take a rest. But we never watch the clock as in industry they do.
Cotton, along with alfalfa, is produced on the Burris farm, and some wheat. Stanley and his wife, Joanne, have been married 30 years. They feel few occupations could offer an equal atmosphere for raising a Christian family and working close to nature. Ben McCain, Action 4.
When a small child was mauled by this tiger in downtown Oklahoma City, it was as if the lid off a hornet's nest had been lifted. For some time, Choctaw had been trying to get the tiger's owner, John Ains, to remove all his exotic animals from inside the city limits. The terrible accident seemed to give fuel to the fire, so to speak, and Choctaw was successful in getting the animals out. Well, now the city of Yukon is looking ahead to the safety and protection of its citizens. Although the city council admits they don't currently have a problem with exotic animals, they feel an ordinance should be passed now to prevent any tragedy in the future. Tonight's meeting only entailed discussion of what is and is not considered an exotic animal, but Debbie Dennis, a spokesman for an exotic animal club, accused the council of not saying what's really on their minds.
I mean, let's hit it between the eyes. I think this whole thing is geared from the tiger episode and the Choctaw episode, and I think that we're not fearing ferrets and raccoons and fox and opossums. We're not fearing those. I think the real subject here, we're skipping around it, and I think you're being evasive, and I think the real thing is we don't want lions and tigers living next door to our children.
Mayor George Eifler assured Ms. Dennis that the council will seek professional knowledge before any ordinance restricting exotic animals is passed. Carol Lambert, Action 4 in Yukon.
A blacksmith pounding red-hot steel into a horseshoe. It's not something you see very often. It's a sight that lets you drift back in time, back to the days of decadent desperados, loyal lawmen, six-shooters, and horses.
The prettier you build a shoe, the better it looks, you know? Yeah.
Later this month, you'll be able to see 3 police officers patrolling the stockyard area mounted on horses. Now, the police department feels there are a lot of advantages to a mounted patrol. Horses are highly visible. They can cover a lot more area than foot officers, and they can get 10,000 miles on a set of shoes. Officer Sam Chestnut is one of the 3 policemen who'll be handling the reins of the patrol horses. Sam says he feels lucky being chosen for the job over 20 others. Horses have always been part of his life.
I've been hoping that the department would institute something like this. And it's going to be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, but if you enjoy horses and you know what you're doing, it'll be worth it. I'll trade. I'd gladly trade a Malibu for a horse. I like these better than the car.
The animals and money for operating the patrol were donated by private sources, and for now the program is only experimental. But if it's successful, you'll probably see horse-mounted policemen in other parts of the city. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 at the stockyards.
The thought behind Christmas is nice, but everyone knows it's shopping for the gift that counts. So if you're still wondering what the people on your list whispered in Santa's ear, don't be a dummy and get the same old socks and ties. Try to be different.
And it does thanks to your heart.
This one's good for hours of fun. Or if you don't have the energy, there's always a good book, like the sequel to last season's bestseller. Video games are good for children of all ages. They tell me after a while you can get good at this kind of thing, and later the skill comes in handy for absolutely nothing else. How about a stereo system? They're a little expensive, but they're sure to be appreciated. Hear that, Mom? And speaking of music, how about the grand piano you always wanted but didn't have room for? This one's a music box, but it cost almost as much as the real thing. The advantage is it fits on the coffee table. Good luck shopping. Ted Brown, Action Ford, Quail Springs Mall.
The movie Tattoo is another one of those films which sustains itself all the way through until right before the ending, and then it's downhill. I get upset when a movie does that. But first, let me set things up for you. In Tattoo, a suspenseful drama, Bruce Dern is Carl, a tattoo artist. He's a strange character. He's a loner, a troubled man. I guess you can call him a little wacko. But he takes his profession very seriously. He's hired to put a tattoo on a model for a commercial. That part is played by a real-life model turned actress, Maude Adams.
God, that's complicated work.
Thank you.
I thought it would feel different, but it doesn't. I've seen your designs. I think they're brilliant.
You gotta relax.
Relax? She's on in 40 minutes or Halsey will throw a fit.
That's certainly not a commercial for winter clothes. Dern is spellbound by Adams. He idolizes her. Now, you've heard the expression, making your mark in life. Well, Dern does that, but he makes his mark on Adams. That's what he calls it anyway, as we see in this scene when Dern invites her into his tattoo parlor.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Is that a man or woman?
Man?
Do you ever do women?
Yeah.
What kind?
Oh. Usually they're women that are ready to be identified, ready to belong. Women that need the mark in order to exist. It's nothing new. It's actually been going on for centuries.
Why do you call it the mark?
Because that's what it is.
Later in the film, Dern kidnaps her, and when she wakes up, she finds her whole body is covered with tattoos. Now, at first, she's obviously upset. Being a model, you can see the problems that would pose. But she later acts like it's no big deal. But it's here the movie goes downhill. I found it to be too predictable. From there on, I didn't find it to be suspenseful at all. The ending is weak, and it's very aggravating because the first half of the film is good. You can see Dern becoming more obsessed with this model, and Dern and Adams do a good job of acting. But as for the movie itself, and especially the ending, it got under my skin. I'm Dean O'Lally.
At tonight's meeting, applicants got 1 hour each to present their proposal and take questions from interested citizens. The three organizations are basically offering the same full-service care to people in the area, but each differs in bed size, staffing, patient cost, and funding. For example, Humana is proposing 125 beds, Baptist 92 beds, and Presbyterian 56. Each say completion of their hospital would be roughly 2 years and would be of no cost to the city. Well, people in the Yukon area are excited about the prospect of getting their own hospital, but want to be sure it's an adequate facility.
The hospital that could serve all needs
from the local level, but to have the sophisticated equipment to handle all diagnostic needs.
Of course, I'm from Yukon, and I would like to have a hospital that is Yukon's, and to me, that would not be associated with an Oklahoma City hospital.
Well, as you can see, the people who showed up for tonight's meeting were bombarded with all kinds of literature from the hospital applicants. Their input, recommendations, and suggestions are welcome. But as we all know, that final decision as to whether a hospital will be built in Yukon and who will build it lies with the State Health Planning Commission. Carol Lambert, Action 4 in Yukon.
Black police officers working for the Oklahoma City Police Department feel they have some special problems that need attention. And so they've formed the Black Officers Association to work toward solutions. Most of the department's black policemen and women say fair and equal treatment is not always happening when it comes to them.
We're not given an equal chance to make a promotion down there, because if your supervisors are not recommending you, then someone has to take the responsibility to say, hey, listen, we're finna make 15 promotions. We've got a guy over here that's qualified. Let's consider him for the promotion also. You know, so we're not saying, hey, give me a promotion because I'm black. I don't want that impression. I don't think that that anyone down there wants that type of impression. I want people to understand that I feel that if a person's qualified, regardless of what race he is, then I think that he should have the promotion. But at the same time, give me an equal chance.
I think a lot of that's in the eye of the beholder, because if you look at the records, 12 of our black officers are in command positions out of about 32 officers. And 6 of them, additionally, are in ranks of detective or above. So I think that's a very high number, and I've worked very hard the past 5 years to make sure that the black officers were represented on promotions, and I think you'll find the ones we promoted are well qualified and have earned those promotions.
The trouble unknown at 1545. The association is also asking that administrators make sure all officers are disciplined equally when it's called for.
For 143, 1500 Northwest 45, 211's on the call.
I'll be out with you. Police encounter many situations where quick judgment is needed, and the decision may not always be the right one, from a manhunt to breaking a door down in order to aid a stroke victim.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kick it in then. I said I was. Here, let me brace you. There you go.
Chief Hagee has asked for documented proof where internal investigations were unfair against blacks. And he encourages blacks and other minorities to join the department because there are plenty of openings. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
The next war the U.S. gets involved in won't be written out on paper in advance, and it most assuredly won't be fought over West Arkansas. But the Oklahoma National Guard and the Air National Guard weren't actually fighting today. They were merely simulating combat, preparing for an enemy they hope they never have to fight. Today's scenario involved every facet of the reserve forces, in the air and on the ground. To the weekend soldier, national security is serious business, and it warrants serious training. These are called war games, but calling them games would be inappropriate.
If we were called, we don't have the time and the luxury of lots of training time that we had back in World War II and in Korea. We've got to be ready to go. And many of these troops that are involved here in these units would be on location in 72 hours from the time that they were called. So we're trying to be ready, trained and ready. That's our goal.
Nobody wants war, but if war breaks out, reserve units will make up 60% of the fighting force. And having the reserves prepared may keep a war as short as possible and get the soldiers back home again. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4 at Fort Chaffee.
The December sky was orange in Bethany around 1 o'clock this morning as flames broke their bounds and stretched out to the stars. Fire was racing through the Bethany School administration offices and classrooms. The building was engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived, and the origin of the blaze is questionable.
Window here? Yeah. I'll take 37, okay. You'll still have 35. This one here? Yeah, right here.
Now this is the office area for the school.
One of the police officers said when he first arrived before our men got here that there appeared to be a window that was broken out. Possibly had been broken out by individuals rather than by the fire itself. Possibility of foul play or arson there.
The fire was not only fierce, but dangerous. Two men were hurt battling the blaze. One injury was slight, the other was not. Overhangs had been added to the school in recent years and presented problems in battling the blaze. Fred Rucker, a state fire marshal's agent, was injured when one such overhang collapsed during the fire. Rucker suffered a fractured arm, 2 broken ribs, and a punctured lung. He is listed in stable condition. 14 fire units and about 50 men from Bethany and Oklahoma City battled the blaze. It took more than 2 hours to contain the fire and prevent further spreading. Around 3:30 this morning, the fire was under control, but the job of extinguishing the flames and tallying the damages was still ahead. Brian Gill, Action 4.
Governor Nye's been concerned for quite some time about the alarming increase in Oklahoma's crime rate. He says that Oklahomans are becoming a prisoner in their own home because of their fear of being a victim of crime.
The governor has now made a move to slow down the increase in Oklahoma's crime rate. He's appointed a 43-member committee to study the problem. The committee is composed of state and local law enforcement officials and civic-minded citizens.
But this group will recommend to the governor and through the governor to the legislature and to the people of Oklahoma what they feel are the priorities needed to be addressed and the overall picture that needs to be addressed to assist the state of Oklahoma to combat this problem in every way that we possibly can.
Tackling Oklahoma's crime rate won't be easy. In the last 10 years, the number of crimes committed in the state has risen 170%, compared to the nation's total increase of 120%. The failing point in the committee plan is that Oklahomans probably won't see any results for a year. The committee has to turn in a complete report by December 10th, 1982. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
We got in, I think, 83 people in one day. We had people working till midnight down at Lexington and receiving people. They were expecting another 40 people today. So what we've had to do is move people out of Lexington into the Joseph Hart facility, which is also at Lexington. And basically we're double bunking people at Lexington and Joe Hart both. Maybe by the end of the week we may have to be putting a few women double bunked over.